All right. The format of this meeting is a 10-minute speaker meeting, a 10-minute coffee break, and then a main speaker. Tonight, our first speaker is Abigail.
Am I supposed to stand up here? Okay. Hi, Abigail, alcoholic. I'm really shaky. Okay. Okay. So essentially, I don't want to spend too much on like what happened previously, because like we've all been there, we all did it. It got bad. I came out weird. I was born weird. I was definitely born an alcoholic. No emotional regulation whatsoever from the second I came out. I started drinking and other stuff at a pretty young age. I was 10. And from the beginning, I abused it. But the first time I drank, I blacked out, got extremely emotional, didn't know what to do with myself. My friends were like laughing and having a good time, and I was like crying about how much everyone hated me in the corner the whole time. And it only progressed from there. And I went through high school, got really bad in high school. My parents started trying to send me to treatment when I was 15, and I was so unreceptive. I had like decided this is my life path. I was going to die when I was pretty young, and I was okay with it. So I graduate high school, and this shows the insanity of the disease, right? I got arrested right after I turned 18. The last day I remember is a Friday, and I woke up in jail on a Thursday covered head to toe in maple syrup, and I still thought like I was living my best life. I was like, that's pretty cool. I don't know what's happening. When can I leave? I was in jail for 3 weeks on a public intoxication charge, which made no sense to me. And I got out and continued to do, so nervous, the exact same stuff that I was doing before, and I still didn't want help. The thing that helped me out the most, I think, was my parents refused to enable me. So when they realized that I was not accepting their help at all, they told me to get the fuck out. They were like, you can figure it out on your own. And I lived in my car on and off for 3 years. Sometimes I'd live on people's couches. Sometimes, like, we had an apartment at one time. It was disgusting. There was no electricity. And at that point, I thought I was living a spiritual life. It's like I'm in touch with myself. My hair is dreaded, and I don't shower. But, like, God and I speak on the daily, and we're really close. But it only got worse because, like, the more that I abused alcohol and like the other substances that I abused, the more miserable I got, and I was chasing that fun or whatever, which I never really experienced from the beginning, but I got more and more miserable to the point where I wanted to die, and I was drinking and doing other things to die. It was no longer to have fun, and I was by myself. And that's when I realized it was a problem, was when I was living in my car and I was getting drunk and fucked up like by myself and would refuse to go hang out with the few friends that I still had that cared about me. And finally I came to my mother and told her I wanted help. And she sent me to a detox in my hometown. I'm from East Tennessee. And I was still pretty unreceptive, but like I wanted the help, and I was like kind of willing to listen, but I wanted to pitch like the biggest fit that I could the entire time. I was like in there breaking chairs and cussing out people, but I wanted their help. I convinced my best friend to come check me out from detox, left, and immediately got fucked up. But then I got on an airplane and came to Arizona. So I get to treatment here. I'm in treatment for 6 months. And once I got here, I kind of realized, like, I came up with this elaborate plan to, like, leave this detox, and I told my parents I'd go to Arizona because I thought somehow that was going to help me get drunk and high for longer. And I kind of screwed myself because I came to in Arizona, and I'm 2,000 miles away from home now. I know no one. And I was like, I guess I'll give this a shot. And I started listening to people. I had a fantastic house manager who's one of my best friends, and she helped take me through the first part. Like, she held my hand in getting a sponsor. She held my hand in going to meetings, speaking, reaching out. I was convinced that I hated women before I came here. I was like, I don't need them. My guy friends help me, which I mean, I love my guy friends, but they don't understand me as a woman. And I got out here, and that's probably the best thing that I could have possibly done, was open myself up to the connection with other women. Like, that is what saved my life, especially in the beginning. So I got a sponsor, started working the steps, started sitting on the steps, got miserable. Leah told me I was going to get miserable when I sat on the steps. I was like, right. And so I still did it anyways. And I remember laying in my room one night just praying. I was like, okay, if I still feel like this tomorrow, like, I will wake up and go find drugs, but I'm just going to, like, and alcohol, drugs and alcohol. And, but I was like, I'm going to sleep tonight. Like, I'm going to power through. I called my sponsor, talked to her, and I woke up the next morning with, like, this weird, like, motivation to, like, no, fuck this. Like, I'm going to sit down and work on my steps. I don't know what that is, but I tore it. Sorry. And so I actually started, like, actively working the steps. And the fourth step, like, everyone talks about how hard it is. Like, it's a lot of work, sure. But, like, I already know all this stuff, and it's already sitting on me for however long it's been there, you know what I mean? Like, my first resentment was from, like, a really young age. I've been holding that for, 16 years, and I'm going to not work on it so I can continue to get high. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And so I sat down, and, like, really I realized I'm just, like, fucking lazy. Like, I didn't want to sit down and write out all this stuff. But I did, and it took me a lot longer than it should have. Probably took me like 2 months to do my fourth step, and I was miserable. And then I did my fifth step, and that's when it didn't feel like super spiritual in the time of doing the fifth step. Like, I was anxious, and I didn't really want to tell her everything, and I just don't like saying that shit out loud. But then she made me go home and meditate or whatever, and something started changing, and I realized, like, this terrible mood and attitude I'd been in for the past 2 months of sitting on my fourth step, like, started to change. And so that gave me even more motivation to, like, continue on with the steps. For me, the eighth and the ninth step were really hard. I hated looking at that. I hated thinking about living amends, my friends that had died. I hated looking at, like, the stuff that I forgot that I had done to my parents, that I was so resentful at them for, like, I don't know, loving me through it, and I hated them for that. And then I started having to think about, like, how I had hurt them so badly, and I had hurt my family. And then I got to see my family for the first time, and I got to make my first amends. And my dad, who's like 6'2", covered in tattoos, rides motorcycles, he's also a cop, is sitting on the bed in front of me, just like in tears, but like happy tears, you know? And I'm crying too because it's me. And that was like, I don't know, that was like one of the best experiences of my life, because I realized, like, I just laid out and, like, took responsibility for, like, all the shit that I'd done and how terrible of a human being I was, and, like, apologized for it, and realized, like, my dad just wanted me to get to this point. You know, my dad just wanted to see me healthy and happy. And then what did I do? I don't know. I asked my mom if I could make my amends to her, and she said no. And I was really fucked up over that, guys. I was like, I called Leah immediately. My mom was still there. I called Leah immediately, and I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, these amends are for me to stay sober, and my mom won't let me make my amends to her. And Leah was like, no, they're not. Like, that's why you ask beforehand if you can make them. Like, you have to be respectful of how they feel. Since I got sober, I know how to interact with human beings now. I have relationships of all sorts. I have a relationship with my mother, which is a big deal. With my dad, I know how to have, like, healthy friendships where I'm not just using them to get what I want out of them, especially when it comes to men. I didn't think I was sick with men when I came in, and then I realized really the only reason I interacted with them was to get something that I wanted, and that's terrible. That's, like, truly awful. And I learned how to have relationships with women, and these women have my back, like, no matter what. I'm about to have a year sober, and, like, I still go through times where I'm not okay. And I have so many, and it's such an important thing, and I know everyone said it, to, like, make a strong community, especially outside of treatment, because I'm in this treatment facility for 6 months, and then you leave, and who do you have if you only communicated with the people inside of treatment? And so I tried really hard to make all these connections outside of treatment, and now I can just go down the list. Like, probably a month ago, I went through something, it was something with my brother and just a whole bunch of different stressors, and it was a weird time, and I wasn't okay. And I thought I was going to get high. And, like, my first instinct was I immediately text Leah. Probably should have called her, but my first instinct was to text was to text her and call my mother, which was so weird. And like, I was afraid my mom was going to yell at me and have the same old behavior that she had prior to, but she just like listened to me, and it meant a lot to her. And Leah was like, why don't you just flush the drugs down the toilet? And I was like, right. Instead of, because I like took them and I was like, shit, drugs, I'm going to put them right here and like see what happens to them. And everyone in meetings would say like, it's cunning, and I didn't believe that until that moment, because when I saw, like, I found these drugs, I was searching someone's stuff, and I found these drugs, and like my first instinct was like, fuck yeah, like I'm gonna get high and like ruin my life. I was like, I bet this would help me sleep. And they weren't even, like, that was not my drug of choice, but that really was how my mind worked. I saw them and I was like, I bet I would sleep really well tonight if I took those, and I could probably just take one, and I could just take them every night for a while, and it would be good. And Leah was like, it makes sense, but flush them immediately. And I was like, okay. And my mom was like understanding. And the biggest thing that's happened to me in sobriety, besides like the relationships that I've made with the women, is like being able to help other people, no matter who that is. Like, I have people who rely on me, and that means a lot to me. Like, that is what keeps me sober, is like when one of my friends even just like texts me and is like, hey, can you talk for a second? And it's like, these people trust me to like help them through some shit, And my brother, who was in it with me, like I started drinking before him, but then I got him into it because I'm terrible, and that's what we do. And he went off the rails with everything. Like, he was really bad. I was bad too, but I was more of like the functioning, kept a job, was just miserable on the inside, and then things started falling apart. From the beginning of his drinking and using, like, he just messed things up from the beginning, like close to death every week. And after I'd been here for, 9 months, after I'd been sober for about 9 or 10 months, my brother finally called me, and we tried to like force him to go to treatment a couple times, and clearly that doesn't work. And he called me one day and was like, I need your help. And I was like, what? And he was like, I need your help. Like, I'm ready to get sober. And because of the program, like, I have a job now. I'm responsible. I have a cat that I feed every day, which is a big deal because I didn't do that before. But I was able to save up. I had money saved up that I wasn't spending on, like, booze and drugs, Like, I don't have to buy. I can actually save money for school. And when my brother reached out to me and asked for my help, I was able to get him out here and pay for his detox and get him into treatment, and that means more to me than like life itself. And now he calls me like every night, and that's all I've wanted. My biggest fear in treatment was that my brother was going to die before I could make my amends to him. And then hearing his voice asking for help and like seeing him every day, and he's healthy and he's motivated and he's working the stuff because no one forced him into it. Like, we can't be forced into it. You can only do this if you want to do it. I have nothing else. Cool. Thank you.